Sumireko's Love Letters, 1.0. Load. Start. Mom, can I ask you something? Auto, Mom, can I ask you something? What is it? I was thinking of finally confessing to. Lately. Oh, I see. That's why. Well, what's the problem you're dealing with? I can't think of what to say. Whenever I put the words together inside my head, I get butterflies in my stomach. It's difficult to say how I feel. I know I should just tell it to her straight, but I don't think you can do that. My little girl likes another girl. That's not very straight of you. Mom. Haha, I'm sorry. Still, from what you've told me, I don't think there's any way that your confession could go that badly. I guess, but I can't help it. I don't like being vulnerable. I don't know how to handle others digging into me. Sweetie, if you don't open up, you're going to have a hard time being in any relationship. You only just entered high school, but that attitude could follow you for the rest of your life. You're right, but I don't want to mess it up. What if I misspeak? Or leave something out that gives her the wrong idea? In that case, have you considered sending your feelings through a letter? You know, a letter. The old-fashioned way. That way you don't have to worry about coming up with everything on the spot. Having the conversation face to face is important, but if your feelings are complicated, getting some important details on paper can at least minimize the possibility of messing up. That's a good idea. I'll plan everything out so it goes perfectly. Well, I don't know about that. You can't really predict how people will react. I think I can, though. If you say so, sweetie. Still, it'll definitely help boost your confidence. What else could you ask for? I could ask for you to leave me alone. Oh, all right. Today was just an utterly boring, standard day in the modern world. As I pretended to pay attention to the teacher's lecture, going over subjects I had already knew beforehand, I kept flipping the envelope in my hand over and over. My name is Sumireko Yosamai. I suppose others would classify me as a high school student at Higashifukumai in the Kanto region, but that wasn't the part of my identity I was most proud of. It was merely a footnote to me. I was a psychic girl genius, capable of traveling beyond realms. From that, I was a frequent resident and lover of Gensokyo. Honestly, it was a bit amusing. I was always a model student, so I had more free time, but ever since the urban legend incident, I'd do my work early so I could go to sleep and cross over into Gensokyo. If you had told me from middle school that I'd do assignments the day I was assigned, I'd laugh in your face. But I wanted to spend as little time in the outside world as possible. I was especially unfocused at the moment. Yesterday, I walked in on my friends, Ryemu and Marisa, kissing on the floor. It was a shock, maybe more for Marisa than me, judging by the squeal she made, but they told me they had been dating for the past few days. We hung out normally after that, but as I saw them casually hold hands in public, I couldn't help but feel jealous. I was happy for them, I really was, though Kazan told me to curb my enthusiasm. Apparently this is the third time they had gotten together. But I couldn't help but dream. It awoke a desire deep inside me I hadn't realized I was repressing. Not only did I want a romantic relationship, but I wanted it to be with a girl too. It's not like I had a chance to explore my romantic interests before, but I found girls pretty and never found guys all that attractive. Being stuck in school made some bitter thoughts cross my mind. My romantic prospects were pretty dismal. I mean, forming a relationship with someone at school was a ridiculous concept. The normies of this world weren't on my level, and I wanted nothing to do with them. Even if I could ignore that, if I were to try and hold hands with a girl at school, I'd probably get bullied. While I didn't care about the others' opinion of me, it'd be a pain in the ass. The only people I could ever get close to were in Gensokyo. Granted, that wasn't a problem itself. But the majority of people I knew there were yokai, who were much older than I was. They would probably outlive me too. It already made me uneasy, thinking about how that affected our friendship, but it made romance feel hopeless as well. At least it'd actually be possible in Gensokyo, but I had no intention of driving myself or someone I care about to a tragic ending. But the previous day's revelation was upended by an even more ludicrous event. For some reason, another student at this dull, ordinary school gave me a love letter. First thing in the morning, as I put my bag away in my locker, I saw a note. A small, pink card that felt at odds with the bulging stack of papers inside of it. At first I thought it had to be some mistake, but when I turned the envelope over, there was my name, written in black ink with neat cursive. Cursive, as in Latin letters. And I only spoke Japanese. Though I could safely assume the letter was meant for me, I could tell it also meant trouble. Nobody at school talked to me, and I had no interest in talking to them either. I didn't need ordinary people to be friends with. It was much more likely for this to be a prank or a disguised threat. Which would actually be pretty fun. I'd love to dissect their schemes, turn their plans back on them, and laugh. Still, the unweighted letter was a capstone to this sudden romantic burst in my life. All I could do was daydream and wait for lunch to arrive. As always, I sat alone, at the corner of the cafeteria. My plain lunch didn't matter today. I had other priorities. I needed to get to the bottom of the letter. Quite literally, in fact. Opening up the papers was bizarre. Just like on the cover, the message was written in Latin letters, though thankfully not in cursive, so the page was a complete illegible mess. It was so pointless to where I felt like someone had to be messing with me, but it was an awfully long letter to be fake. The majority of the pages were the actual letter. Then there was a number of blank pages with only a single line written upon them, and lastly a drawing. What on earth? I think that was when I noticed it. A strange aura that looked like it had been inscribed upon the page. Even though I had no idea on why this could be happening, I recognized the similarity to the aura I felt when using my Zener cards. Which gave me the idea to try and use my Esper powers on the letter. It shouldn't have done anything. My psychic powers over matter had no logical connection to reading different languages. The reality is, once I did, I felt the magic burst through the paper. A huge surge of icy energy shot through my mind and the jumble of meaningless scribbles consolidated into symbols. My theory was proven once I looked at the mostly blank pages, as they had contorted into something I could understand. They said, right here for magical translation. Even despite that, I still couldn't read what the confession actually said. My powers, or more likely the paper's magic which I activated, allowed me to distinguish one letter from another. I could tell AB from AD at a glance. But I couldn't tell what meaning they actually conveyed, since none of the letters actually seemed to say anything. They merely existed in a jumbled mess. However, there was order to that chaos. The words were clearly arranged in formations that indicated sentences. This wasn't some ordinary confession note. It was supernaturally encrypted. Maybe I was the only one who could read this at all, due to my psychic powers activating some paranormal technique. None of my classmates would be able to understand this letter. No, none of our classmates. I spent a few moments just mulling over what this implied. There was another student here who lived in the supernatural. Another person here who wasn't normal. They sent what definitely seemed to be a love confession, yet also put it through some sort of code to make it difficult to read. What kind of person would do such a thing? If this was a prank, it had graduated into a full-on scheme, and if it was genuine, then why would this person be so roundabout? At the very least, whoever sent this letter succeeded in seizing my curiosity. One thing I was certain of was that this letter was made for me. It was a challenge to me in order to figure out the message's contents, and I was going to get to the bottom of it. It was the end of the day when she appeared. I spent the rest of my lunch period searching different methods to brute force the message, or gain some sort of inkling on how it could be decoded. But after my third article on frequency analysis, it was time to go back to class, and the school staff ended my decrypting session with little fanfare. After more hours passed with me ignoring my lectures, I was ready for the day's end to fully devote myself to the letter. So when that clock struck time, I bolted for my club room, the Secret Sealing Club. As its president, I was happy to announce that we had a change in itinerary. Every single one of us would ignore our prior plans and instead dismantle this letter's content. As the club's only member, I'd have to work hard. That was when she came into the room. While I didn't notice the door opening, it was silent, and I was absorbed in inking down all of the deductions I've made. I couldn't ignore her high voice. It was a pretty yet irritating tone I knew I had heard before, and matching it to a familiar face made my heart stop. "Oh. I didn't know you were so studious, Yosemi. I couldn't get your attention at all during class. You just kept staring out of the window like people were flying through the sky. To see you diligently taking notes, maybe the others were right about you." Yukari Yakumo. For some reason, she was right in front of me. I hadn't had many opportunities to talk to Miss Yukari, but I had learned she was bad news. She was a sage, and from the way others danced around their words, she was fundamental to Gensokyo. That first time I came across her, she had just seemed polite and determined to get to the bottom of the perfect possession incident. I couldn't really tell why others spoke so poorly of her, but the next time we met, during the fireworks festival, I knew. She helped the other malevolent yokai hijack the festival, yet mostly commented on the proceedings with a serene smile. I couldn't tell what her goal was or even if she was actually malicious. It convinced me that she was always up to something. In addition, I've heard much of her secondhand, and the hand writhed in frustration when forced to talk about her. Kazan disparaged her for being lazy and always using other people to accomplish her dirty work. Marisa was equal parts unnerved and excited by her sheer power and complex danmaku. And Ryumu. Even though at times she guided Reamers on her duties or mentored her, my friend only had one thing to say. "She's just trouble. Someone that comes and goes as she pleases, you can't rely on her to do her job, she always ends up talking about something only she can understand, and even when she doesn't she teases and annoys people anyways. It's hard to trust anything that comes out of her mouth. Don't bother dealing with her." Yet, she was still here. In the outside world. She was garbed in a similar school outfit, and she looked like she had transformed herself to be my age as well. It was uncanny, the way this feared yokai fit into this boring, ordinary school. Yosemi. You can talk, right? Whoops. Looks like I got too caught up in my head and stared at her like an idiot for a minute. Sorry. I just didn't expect to see you here, Miss Yukari. Didn't you hear me earlier when I was introducing myself? My name is Violet A. Taoin. A new exchange student from, remember? We talked earlier. Don't tell me you forgot. It was another unthinkable situation. Both seeing that expression on her face and what she said. She pouted like she didn't just spout blatant lies. As little attention as I paid in class, there was no way I'd forget a significant event like a transfer student. And giving herself a different identity was laughable. She was obviously Yukari Yakumo. Especially since, as her words reminded me, I hadn't introduced myself, so if she was telling the truth then she shouldn't know I was Yosemite. I feared I underestimated how much of a liar she really was, and that I was already being dragged into trouble. Would it be a good idea to just play along for now? Okay then, Miss Ataoin. You can use Violet. No missy business either. Never mind, it was an awful idea. Despite knowing that, I doubled down on playing along. I doubted confronting her would lead to anything besides a fight, and I wasn't in the mood for that. Violet. Did you need something from me? Not really. It's my first day here after all, and I was looking at possible clubs to join. I know I recognized you from class, so when I saw you running through the hall, I followed you. Yukari or Violet, I suppose, moved to the desk next to mine and sat down. You already decided you're going to stay, then? You're going to kick me out? Only if you distract me from my work. Ah, okay. I'll just do things so discreetly you don't know what's going on. I'd want to know what's in that nice envelope you've been hiding. As soon as I processed what she meant by that, I tried clamping my hand down on the table to hide the letter. But I was too late. The paper literally fell from my sight, and my letter fell straight into the fearsome Yakumo's clutches. Oh, that's so wonderful. It's exciting, isn't it, Yosemite? Great. She kept smiling at me with that dumb smile. I lunged at Yukari, but in a smooth sleight of hand she switched it to behind her back. When I tried snatching it back then, it somehow moved back on the desk. Then back in her hands. Give it back, you Violet. You can't read that. I won't let you. Even as I got more aggressive in my attempts, she seemed to effortlessly be able to keep the envelope from my grasp. I even took back my earlier decision and tried to slap her, but she caught my arm. She didn't even seem mad. Yukari looked like she was holding back laughter. You can't read it either, can you, Sumireko? Well, I could probably get Ran to do a brute force attack to decode it, so if you really wanted. Stay out of it. It's meant for me. I don't need your help anyways, so just. With a crash, I tipped her chair over and sent us both tumbling to the ground. Though my arms hurt from the impact, I had too much energy at that moment to care. I took my chance to get the letter and clutched it near my chest. Are you really here to just make a nuisance of yourself? No, I was just curious. How far have you gotten in figuring it out? What an irritating poker face. Even after I slammed her head against the floor, she just smiled and pretended it didn't happen. I don't think anything I could do would ever hurt her. Getting even more frustrated would probably amuse her too. Every option seemed to work in her favor, which meant the best option was, unfortunately, to just tell the truth. At least if she helped me decode the letter she would have done something useful. Ugh. Nothing's matched with the frequency distribution stats I've found online. Some other method should work, but I can't figure out what it would be. Even though I can magically read it, I don't have the intuition necessary to work with Latin letters. That's fine and all, but I'm bored. Could you give me one of the papers you're not using? Why would I do that? I could make an origami crane out of it. Can you just get lost? Seriously, As I flipped through the pages in annoyance, my train of thought suddenly froze. The last page had caught my eye. I glossed over it at first because it had just seemed to be a drawing of a heart, with 5 blank underscore lines beneath it. The drawing was rather well done, with the cartoony shape and embellishments contrasted by the heart's realistic textures and protrusions that seemed to weave across the drawing. But as I looked over it once more, I saw some short snippets of text hidden in the lace-like textures. One that said 5x5, one that said I equals j. Ah, this is it. The key to decrypt the message. I slammed the papers down with a grin. In hindsight, the text seemed completely conspicuous, but they were pretty well hidden in the drawing. That wasn't the only thing that felt obvious. Yukari had just guided me into finding this answer right. I don't get it. I just assumed that was a lie. Her genuinely giving me a hint made some sense. She literally just stole the confession from me. It wasn't unreasonable to assume that she noticed something I missed. In that case, was she really here to help me? For now I'd continue to play along. If the person wants me to decode this letter by hand, they probably used a simple encryption technique. From what I gathered online, it's common to use keywords. That's what the 5 lines represent. It's probably a keyword that's 5 lines long. 5 letters long? Ugh. Yes, letters. That I equals j is probably a hint to the kind of encryption system, as is the 5x5. But that means it's not just substitution. This is going to be a pain. The magic's going to help me, but I still only speak Japanese. In that case, can't you rely on me? I stared at her innocent facade in disbelief. She must have caught on to my incredulity, because she coughed. I am a foreign student from, remember. I can speak English. So I can give you pointers on Latin letters. I sighed. Yukari's mere presence was suspicious, but this was on another level. Still, it seemed like she could actually be useful. In that case, of course I'd be practical enough to accept. All right then. Go on. To start with, if this is English, then there are some interesting coincidences, or rather, they would be hints. Equating I equals j means we can take the English alphabet as 25 letters dash. Connecting it to the 5x5. So every letter would take up a slot, except for I and j, which would share one. I had sifted through an unreasonable amount of information about encrypting messages in other languages, so those words rang a bell. My hand had already pulled out my phone to look into this idea further. But it being conveyed as 5x5 made me think of a square. And in that case, my voice trailed off as I kept searching for the idea that I had in my mind. It was too much of a stretch before, but with the information Yukari gave me, I found it. What I was looking for. Tell me about it. It's called a Playfair cipher, and girls are explaining, please wait warmly. That was a lot to take in. What was up with the hints Yukari gave me then? For now, I'd just ignore her. I really wanted to know what this said. Go search it up on Wikipedia yourself. Do you have a smartphone, or? Man, that's so unfair. Don't you have a code word to find, Yusumi? Yeah. A 5-letter word. Input word. What is the word? Ha. Easy. You're so smart, Yusumi. When you say that, it makes solving this seem stupid. Thanks. You're welcome. Whatever. I didn't care anyways. That's why I'm not thinking about it. Right. Decoding this seemed like a pain in the ass, but finally getting to learn what this weird letter said was enough to make up for it. There was only one thing left to do now. Girls are translating. Please wait warmly. To Yosemite Sumireko. Firstly, I would like to apologize for confessing to you by this method. It may be inelegant, but I wanted to ensure that you would only be reading this if you had the ability to parse through the supernatural. When I was a child, I found a strange book in an old building. I don't remember why I had gone to that place. I think I had been playing a game with my friends, and as we scattered around our home village, I went to that abandoned set of houses. The inside was eerily still and quiet, and I still remember how the dusty air made me wheeze. But most of all, I remembered seeing a book in green leather, bound in a pretty pattern. I grabbed it immediately, and tried to read through it. But the words were completely unintelligible. Being a young child in a scary ghost house, I stopped trying to read and then left. I swear I could hear footsteps behind me, however. Ever since then, I've been seeing things. Strange creatures scurrying around in the bushes. Apparitions I could only see from the corners of my sight that vanished when I tried to get closer. Ghostly music just above a whisper, distant yet overwhelming. Recently there have been times where I've woken up in a forest of bamboo and listened to the chants of terrifyingly large rabbits. My family, my friends, all of them tried to convince me I was just seeing things. For a while, I tried to believe them. But all of that changed, however. I saw you. Whenever you'd fall asleep in class, I saw a mirror image of you dissociate from your body and then disappear into thin air. The first time was a complete shock. I think I dropped my bag on the floor and made a fool of myself in front of everyone. I was able to control myself later on, but I always ended up staring at you. Consistent, undeniable proof that I was right. With it confirmed, I started taking steps to figure out what exactly was wrong with me. I went back to that old abandoned area. Unfortunately, I actually couldn't find the same place that first sparked my awakening. But I eventually got my hands on another book. Then another, then another. As I trained myself, I found that I could read and create passages via supernatural means. This is my only and most crucial weapon against this unknown. I know I found something supernatural. I know it's ensnared me ever since. As the leader of the Secret Sealing Club, I want your help in figuring out these ghosts that have plagued me. While that's my formal plea, I must be honest. Ever since I've realized the reality of my situation, I've thought of you more and more. Firstly as a savior, but it slowly changed to someone I would want to be around. As the only other person who could probably see what I saw, you would be able to understand me in a way no one else really would. So I started imagining myself with you. I'm kind of scared to confront that feeling, because I've never thought about what it would be like to like another girl. But at the same time, I think it would be lovely. I won't put my contact information here yet on the off chance I've gone completely insane and this letter is complete gibberish to you. If you are reading this and are willing to help me, leave a note at, and I'll contact you again soon. Thank you. What the hell? Of all the things I expected to be in a letter, this was not it. Really, how arrogant could a person be? This girl spent too much time grandstanding about her past. I guess it made more sense as a request for help than a love letter, but since she still did confess, it was too self-centered. More importantly, she seemed to be treating me as someone I wasn't. I don't know why she expected me to be someone special for her. It made me uncomfortable. But helping out this person didn't seem unfun. My sense of intrigue just deepened, and I really wanted to meet her now. Even though it'd lead to plenty of problems, I think I could indulge her. That took a while. Even though you gave up manually translating it halfway. I ignored Yukari's prodding. I wanted to cross over into Gensokyo ASAP and have a talk with Ryemu and Marisa. But as I finished packing up my things, Yukari grabbed my shoulder. What is it? Would you be willing to help her? Do you think you could save her? Who knows? I'm no hero or anything, but I'm interested enough to reply. If I'm interested enough, then yeah, I'd help her out. Well, that's good enough. I'll be back here tomorrow, then. Would you even listen to me if I told you no? Nope, not really. Fine. Just be less of a nuisance next time. Okay. See you tomorrow, Yosemite. With a twirl, she waved and skipped out of the room. She hadn't even been carrying a bag. I didn't notice that when she came in. Looks like I'd be stuck with her for a while, whatever her ultimate plan was. I had a lot to think about. The possibility of someone else like me in the outside world. Could I really want that? If it was really true, what would I do? There were too many unknowns, but I'm sure the answer would be interesting. I finished gathering up my things and went home. It had been a few days since I first received the letter. While I wrote back to the sender via their designated location, I had no response. Nothing happened. For all I knew, it could have been a dream. When I had some time alone at school, I'd look over the papers once more to confirm whether the magic was real, because that was unmistakable. Not that I actually had that much time alone. Violet had made good on her promise to bother me at secret sealing club meetings. It didn't take long for her to hunt me down during lunch as well. She had actually toned down her antics, which I didn't expect. To be fair, most of the time, we weren't doing anything, so it might have just been that there wasn't much for her to mess up. But we spent a lot of time talking. What did you think of S homework, Yosemite? Too much busy work. He always does this, especially when big tests are coming up. It's so annoying. I don't know if I can just call it busy work. He had some mean lectures. I felt like I had to go through the assignments over and over to understand them. Even opened the textbook for the first time. Really now? I doubt you actually study. How rude. You know I'm a hard-working high school student. Here, take a look at my notes, I'll prove it. That's not what I meant. We're both just too intelligent. Far past the point where these subjects could actually challenge us. As I flipped through the pages of her notebook, my mind wandered to what her motivations actually could be. Apparently she had been involved with kidnappings from the outside world before. Was she the culprit behind this too? If so, then what would she gain from helping me figure out the solution? Even if she wasn't, what did she want? Because at the moment it just seemed like she wanted to mess me, which could very well be the case. You look like you're in a good mood. Do I? Yeah. While you were daydreaming in class today, you had a smile on your face. It was a bit manic, actually, but I don't mind. I reflexively brought my hand to my face, and then snapped it back down. Geez, how creepy. Do you do that to everyone? No, just people I care about. You never know what you can learn about someone by seeing them in candid moments. Does that mean you're always watching me? Aw, would you be happy if you learned I was? Don't stalk me. It's uncomfortable. Well, I have to keep watch on you sometimes. Due to how your ability to cross over into Gensokyo affects the barrier. Whoa. You're actually doing your job? What job? I'm only a part-time student, after all. It's going to be so sad when we enter the workforce, it's hard. And that was how our days went. The mystery remained unsolved, but Violet Touhou stuck around as my first real friend at school. Even if I knew she wasn't really a part of this school, she helped make these hours of the day not a waste. Whether she was guilty or not, she had already wormed her way into my life. But I couldn't accept the lack of progress. I, Sumireko Yosamai, had been given a puzzle to solve. Sitting around twiddling my thumbs wasn't my style. As a genius, if the clues weren't readily apparent to me, I would search for them myself. That's how I found myself busy in the secret sealing club. With an old yearbook in one hand and social media apps in the other, I was making notes on each one of my current classmates. Cross-referencing simple attendance factors, pinpointing those girls who stood out, and even making note of who was friends with who. It was only half of my plan to get to the bottom of this. The half that assumed that the letter was real and someone really needed me. As for the other half, which concluded that this was an elaborate scheme by Yukari, I was working on a solution back in Gensokyo. After a talk with Ren'Py and Marisa, we had negotiated with the Kappa to create a certain device. It'd take more than a week to be finished, but if it actually worked, then we'd be able to determine the truth of that hypothesis once and for all. In the meantime, I would just have to reluctantly engage with my classmates' lives. As I was learning more about my classmates than I wished, Violet had arrived to the club meeting. Speaking of my plan with Ren'Py and Marisa, they said it was nearly impossible to keep track of Yukari, but they'd try to actively find her whereabouts more often. Whatever was going on with her, she couldn't be in Gensokyo and the outside world at the same time, right? I was seriously grateful that I had good friends on that side of reality, but I tried to keep them out of my mind. It wouldn't do for Violet to catch on to what we had planned. "What are you up to now, Yosamai?" Trying not to barf at my classmates' cringe photos. They seriously did that in public? Not only that, they thought it was a good idea to post a picture of it on the internet? I tilted my phone so she could get a closer look. Oh, how scandalous. I didn't know you were interested in that kind of stuff. I'm not looking at it because I want to. I haven't gotten any sign from my letter sender, so I started researching my classmates to see if I could find her identity. Oh. You really want to meet her, then? Want to? I'm not sure. This whole thing is weird. But as of now, I consider her an official client for the Secret Sealing Club, so I want to fulfill the request to the best of my ability. Besides, whoever she is, she made things unnecessarily complicated. I want to figure things out and beat her over the head for it, at least. Yosamai really is a hero. I rolled my eyes. Hey, don't ignore me. And continued on with my work. Violet gave me an all too short reprieve before she spoke up again. So, what do I do? I'm officially a member of the Secret Sealing Club now, aren't I? What club activities am I doing? You know, it'd be much more efficient with you helping out. Grab that other yearbook and start taking notes. Is there a point? I wouldn't know your classmates as well as you would. I'd be happier that way. In fact, I'd be happier if you knew more about them than I did. You could talk to them for me. Really? Do you think so? You're great with words. I almost bit my tongue from stopping myself. My thoughts were because Yukari was a master of lying and manipulation. It would be colossally stupid of me to admit that. Never mind. Well, it was rude of me to ask you to deal with them. They're annoying and I don't want to do it either. But if you'd still be willing to help, That'd be fine. Okay. I'll follow your lead, club president. I'll work hard, so please treat me well. And thus passed the secret sealing club's first real investigation. The next day, I got a letter. It was the same scenario as the first, as it suddenly appeared in my locker before the school day began. From the outside, it looked exactly the same, as the envelope and handwriting were identical. But I wasn't going to gawk at it in the hall and draw unwanted attention. Now that I knew more of the letter's context, it meant that I'd have work to do very soon. Appearing just after yesterday was pretty suspicious, and left Yukari in an even more questionable state. That didn't really matter, though, since this wasn't a situation overthinking would help in. I just had to wait until lunchtime. Surprisingly, the morning absolutely breezed by, and I found myself at the lunch table ripping open the envelope. The letter was the same as before, a jumbled mess of letters that would be incredibly annoying to transcribe onto my phone. The scratch paper also seemed to be the same. But the hint page this time. It was still a drawing, but one that looked like a child's drawing. The code word was written in a sentence but before I could work the paper's magic. Oh, that's the new show ***, right? As she had always done, Violet plopped down at the seat next to mine and read through my papers. Without my permission. Well, if my growing hypothesis was correct, she already knew the contents of this letter in the first place. No harm in letting her see it. What show? You mean you haven't heard of ***? It's streaming on Plus. Everyone's been talking about it. It's like a dramatic romantic comedy, but in space. And the set pieces are crazy. It's their new blockbuster show, after all. I cried so hard in the past episode, where the protagonist got flung into space by the before she could confess to her beloved. Do you really enjoy that shit? Huh. Now that she said it, I do remember many of my classmates talking about some show by that name. I had blocked out their chatter from my ears, but I hadn't expected Violet of all people to be the one to pull me into a conversation about it. You heard me, didn't you? I'm sitting right next to you. My hearing hasn't gone that bad. But what's wrong? I stayed silent for a few seconds. Yukari was probably just messing with me again, right? She wasn't the kind of person who would actually enjoy the show. I mean, it was tacky television slop. Nothing that would impress a literal yokai. She might have just been trying to draw out a reaction from me, but I couldn't figure out what. Eventually, the silence got too heavy and I gave in with the truth. It's not the kind of thing I would interact with. I didn't expect you to be like other people, Violet. What do you mean by that? You know. Other people. The ones that jump from one trend to the next based on what's popular and new, allow themselves to be consumed by media made by faceless conglomerates and make it their whole identity, then go on crusades against others based on opinions given to them by others. Disgusting. That TV show is just the newest fad for people like that. I thought that we were fundamentally different from them. No, I'm pretty sure we are fundamentally different. I had gotten into fights about how much I disliked the modern world before, but talking about it with Violet with Yukari made a slight sense of unease seep through my bones. I wasn't sure why, but for a few moments, I was worried about what she was going to say. The fact that she refused to respond wasn't helping. That was, until. Yosamai, how could you say such idiotic things? It's a really good show, you know. Never mind. She just said something really stupid. As I blankly stared at her, She suddenly spoke up again. So, what would you do if the person who wrote this letter also liked that TV show? What if the secret admirer you're so fixated on is actually one of those other people, Sumireko? What if? Was there even a point in thinking about it? I'd stop caring about her. If she's one of those kinds of people, she never could have been what I was interested in. So why bother? It doesn't really matter anyways. Those two kinds of people couldn't coexist anyways. So I'll get to decoding the letter. Okay. Let me know if you need any help, Yosemite. Input word. What is the word? We sat in silence as I continued filling out the cipher grid. The moment I was done, however. Ting. Oh oh. That was the bell. I had completely lost track of time again. Lunch had ended, and I hadn't had the chance to read the letter yet. It made me mad. I really wouldn't be able to pretend to focus in class with this letter on my mind. As I begrudgingly gathered up my things, Violet pulled my arm to stop me. Yosemite, you didn't read the letter yet. It's the end of lunch, Violet. I don't feel like being harassed by the teachers again, so I'll leave it for later. Are you sure? I don't really have a choice. You do, though. I'm right here, you know. Huh? What are you going to do? Come up with some excuse for you to skip class, obviously. I don't think it's too hard. Despite not paying attention much, you have good grades and a solid attendance record. A little favor like this wouldn't be too tricky to wrangle from them. My mouth hung from speechlessness once more. Realizing that we were going to be kicked out in mere moments, I rubbed my cheeks. You would really do that? Of course, Yosemite. We're friends, right? For a few more moments, I stared at her in silence. I had no arguments, and for that matter, no desire to disagree. I nodded, returned a shaky smile, and finished packing up my things. After waving goodbye to Violet, I left for some isolated place where I could decode the letter. Girls are translating. Please wait warmly. To Yosemite Sumireko. I'm sorry for taking so long to reply to you. I wanted another chance to talk to you directly, but ever since that girl started to stick to you, I wasn't able to find an opportunity. So I was forced to rely on a letter once again. You know, there's something that's always fascinated me about you. You aren't afraid to stand alone. When others carefully shape their words to not rock the boat, you double down on your views and ideals when challenged. A tall poppy that will draw blades against the scissors when they come. I really admire you for that. I've never been able to resist the pressure from others. True, part of that was because I felt like I was constantly on the brink of insanity due to the supernatural nonsense I've been pulled into. But even without that, I'm a weak-hearted person. When my friends suggest something, I go along with it, even if I dislike what they're doing. When strangers cut in line in front of me, I can't bring myself to confront them about it. I'm so scared of making a mistake and doing something that draws others' scorn. In a way, we're complete opposites. Oh, sorry. I got lost in a tangent again. I can talk to you more when we meet in person. My contact information is. The rest of the letter was smudged by ink, as was the signature. How convenient. Did this girl want to be found, or not? My intuition told me the answer was not this time, I wasn't going to take the letter's words at face value. I was almost positive now this was Yukari Yakumo writing. The circumstantial evidence always continued to build and build, but this was so fishy it shook a mermaid. There were too many connections between our conversation during lunch and the contents of the letter. Heck, maybe that was the whole reason she chose that TV show as the hints, so she could guide the conversation to that answer. If that was true, then what did it mean? What was the point of sending me these letters and then pretending to be a student at my school? Of sticking to me like glue? I threw around some hypotheses in my head, but weirdly enough, I didn't feel any sort of dread from this realization. Before, I figured that had this been some sort of elaborate prank, I'd bloody my hands to make the perpetrator pay. But now that I had come to this conclusion, as I thought back on Violet's actions, I realized something. I really couldn't feel any malice from Yukari, even though I knew how dangerous she was. Violet felt like my friend. And from everything I've learned about her, I think I could figure out her motivations. Once I got that device from the Kappa, I'd be able to confirm it. I couldn't wait to be proven right. More than anything else, I needed to check back in with Reimers and Marisa. We had some more plotting to do. It had been 10 days since then. I hadn't confronted Violet on it yet that she, as Yukari, had been behind the letters the whole time. The primary reason was that the device had only been finished last night, but we had also been busy. There were still some mysteries to be resolved if Yukari really was the culprit. There were minor ones like Violet's handwriting being different from the letters, or why she'd go as far as to pretend to be a student, but the big one was as follows: somehow, Violet in the outside world had a physical existence at the exact same time as Yukari in Gensokyo. I had asked Reimu and Marisa to keep Yukari busy for an entire day. When I checked back in with them, they confirmed that Yukari was within eyesight for the full 24 hours. Yet during that same exact time period, I had asked Violet to hang out with me after school. We went to a sweets shop, then walked around town until nightfall. It was nice, but... That's right. The craziest part of the past few weeks was that Violet and I were regularly spending time together. Like she really was just another student. After school on that day I got the second letter, I was worried about how I'd hide my new revelation. But in a confusing turn of events, I barely had to explain myself. I told Yukari about how my admirer wasn't able to share her contact information and I'd just wait for her to respond. Rather than ask for details, Violet brushed all that aside. We didn't do much that day, but for the first time we walked home together. Things escalated from there. Before we had studied together, but we started studying for real other ways to improve my psychic powers, even if it turned into Danmakulite with papers and pens. We visited some parks in the city and talked smack about the locals going about their routines. There was the aforementioned sweet shop raid, and that wasn't the last time we went out to eat. One time we even met up with Mommy. I really expected Violet to decline that time, but she played along as we snuck into this band's bar performance. This was the most free time I've spent in the outside world in years. Normally once school ended, I'd head straight to sleep to leave to Gensokyo. Now, I was staying up more and more. But this distraction would finally come into the station and stop today. During the past few meetings, we had been planning the Secret Sealing Club's first official excursion. We would go to an old shrine in the area and look around to see what we could find. It was actually Violet's idea. Don't know what brought it on, but she was absolutely beaming when she rushed into the club room with the suggestion. I couldn't bring myself to say no. It was perfect timing that the device finished last night. This would be my opportunity to get to the bottom of the truth once and for all. Yukari Yakumo, Violet A. Touhou, a fake student who crafted forged love confessions for a purpose I could only hypothesize about. I honestly did appreciate how much more interesting she made my life. But I wasn't going to hold back in dissecting her plan. If this was a battle of wits between her and I still didn't want to lose, no matter how cunning she may be. The shrine was under an hour by train. I arrived 20 minutes beforehand to prepare some things, but... oh, I got here early. This is a momentous occasion, after all. The Secret Sealing Club's first investigation will go down in history. I mean, I guess she could just teleport. Taking the train with me was likely a courtesy, or something she did for kicks. Wait, couldn't I teleport too? Maybe I could ask Violet for help on increasing the distance. Not having to deal with gas fumes sounded pretty nice. I tried putting my mind back on track as I pulled out the tickets. Maybe for you. Kazan tells me you're always lazy. I hope you enjoy going outside and touching grass. All the more reason that this is a noteworthy day for me. Wouldn't you agree? In fact, I'll take notes right now. She's really committed to the bit. As she scribbled down whatever she was writing in her notepad, I grabbed her arm and pulled Violet onto the train. Thankfully the train wasn't too packed this morning, so we didn't have to worry about other people. Especially nice for me since I lost our rock-paper-scissors game and had my window seat taken away from me. Since we had just over 50 minutes to our destination, we tried talking for a while. I hate that there isn't a less vapid word for it, but we were just sharing gossip about Gensokyo. So I saw the fairies that live with reamers carrying out some sort of big jar. Oh, Sunny, Star, and Luna. They were probably stealing some special sake. Kids like them. Thinking about drunk people already puts me in a bad mood, but that image is outright depressing. Well, they can't do anything too bad while drunk. Worst case is they die and revive the next day. That doesn't make it better. Wait, they really have something like that on the moon? Gross, isn't it? Lunarians sound like such pricks too. So convinced they're better than everyone else, they just mock us from afar. How stupid. Nothing. You're completely right. Could you tell me about that time you summoned a UFO? Wait, how did you hear about that? It's not like I remember much about it. The end result wasn't even an inconvenience, let alone an incident. It's just an old story I remember Ren'Py complaining about in the past. She was in a bad mood and for some reason you summoned a UFO? That. Well, it's as you say. I think we were trying to get Ren'Py out of bed and for some reason Marisa encouraged me to do it. Was it even that helpful, actually? I think you should learn to do it on command. It's just free bullet cancels, you know? Plus, if you're hungry, you can slaughter them for food. I'll get an upset stomach if I have to hear about how you eat a UFO. The conversation was fun, but the rational part of my mind kept me anchored in reality. I couldn't lose myself spending time with Violet. If Yukari was doing this for a reason I didn't like, then all of these good memories would be poisoned. Until I could guarantee to avoid that outcome, I had to protect my heart. After we both quieted down, there was still a ton of time to kill, so we just watched the landscape fly by. Well, Violet was right next to the window, so she could directly look outside. I had to look past her. I couldn't help but watch her behavior, noting how her gaze never wavered from some spot on the horizon I couldn't make out. It looked like a nostalgic shot from a movie. The way the morning sun shined off of her, how strands of hair fell off her face, unkempt from her hat. I never thought about it before, but it was a really silly thing to wear in public. They looked like the kind of hats people wore in the shower. It was hard to make that association when looking at the measured, devious Yukari Yakumo. But on Violet, it felt all the more dorky. A silly hat on a carefree girl that was my friend. But she wasn't just some ordinary girl. She was a monster far older and scarier than I could ever imagine. I pulled away and turned to the other side of the train to forcefully remind myself of that fact. Even though we were friends, she was inhuman. If I was right, she was just playing around, and though we were both having fun, the game must end eventually. I'm already losing it, aren't I? Otherwise I wouldn't need to keep reassuring myself. From the train station was a short bus ride, which then turned into a medium walk. Neither of us spoke a word until we stood at the edge of town, on the border of a forest. Looking at images off the internet was one thing, but feeling the chilly morning air and the uneven dirt sliding out from my feet made this feel all the more real. It also occurred to me that I wasn't ideally dressed for the occasion, though I was better off than Violet. If I didn't wear my uniform, then I'd have trouble convincing you I'm a high school student. Isn't that right? I dunno. One look at your current report card could tell me you really need the education. How are you even failing to keep up with classes? Well, that's because our teachers assign us too much work. I'm just a poor teenager that can't handle it. Bzzzt. I snorted. Standing around was fun, but I had a mission to fulfill. Without responding to Violet, I pulled out our map of the area and pointed to the direction we needed to go. We've got a lot of work to worry about outside of school too. Shall we go find those weekend boundaries? Our club notes aren't going to write themselves. Come on. She pulled my hand along, and off we went. As we traveled, I kept thinking over the script of what things I wanted to say. I didn't realize I couldn't just bring them up out of nowhere. Eventually, though, I worked up the will to bring up some surface-level small talk. I'm glad the weather's nice. I'd hate to deal with rain while we're in this unknown location. Yeah. I didn't bring an umbrella with me or anything, so if it suddenly started to rain, I don't know what I'd do. Oh really? Aren't you able to acquire one at any time? Out in this wilderness? There's nowhere I'd be able to find one. I'm a normal high school girl, after all. Bzzzt. I'm glad that went as expected. Hopefully she'd take my small smile as amusement over her joke. I guess we'd just take cover underneath the shrine's roof. Assuming the roof is stable enough for that. How do you know that the shrine has a roof for shelter? How would you know the roof wouldn't have one? I was about to leave it at that, but I immediately realized that this was another opportunity. Have you been to a shrine before? Miss Ordinary High School Girl? Obviously not. That's why I, Violet A. Touhou, wanted to plan this in the first place. Bzzzt. Good on you, Sumireko Yosamai, for quickly catching onto that easy layup. Point is, it should be a normal building. Unless it collapsed. It's right in the wilderness, and there aren't many people. If people did a poor job in taking care of it. I don't know about that one. I feel like a shrine could stay standing for a surprisingly long time, even with minimal maintenance from a lazy shrine maiden. Haha. Can't argue with that. It wasn't long until we reached the entrance to the shrine. It was eerily similar to the Hakure shrine, and we both knew it. Though Violet didn't let that fact betray her on her face. The gates look so majestic atop all those stairs. We're climbing a mountain to make our offerings to the deity above. Just like that one story, isn't it? Maybe we should do a reenactment. Would you be capable of carrying me up there? I would, actually. Do I take that to mean you want to be treated as a princess? Forget it. I put my hand to my chin as I thought about how I wanted to keep questioning Yukari. I hope that you're going to be alright. You're wearing your school shoes, aren't you? No, I'm wearing boots. Use your eyes, Sumireko. Did you actually want to treat me as the princess? She tilted her head at me as I signaled a no. Since I certainly wasn't going to explain myself, she sighed and continued. Besides, it's just a flight of stairs. The walk to get here was more stressful than this. I guess so. Violet's stare lingered on me for a while longer before she turned to go up the stairs, and I followed right on her heels. The entrance to the shrine building itself was much less impressive. The walkway was uneven and cracked, with weeds and other plants spilling from the uprooted stones. The wooden structure seemed sturdy enough, but also was visibly discolored and worn. Tattered scraps hung from the under roof. But that wasn't what made my heart drop. For a few moments, I couldn't help but see the Hakurei shrine superimposed on the building in front of me. Reimers has said it's broken down in the past, but since I hadn't seen it for myself, I never really felt like it could be real. But this place was all too similar. If I blinked, instead of this random location in the outside world, I saw that comfortable refuge in ruins. It was disconcerting. Violet was similarly silent. Was she thinking something similar? Sorry. I couldn't help but think about the Hakurei shrine. I guess it's the same for you. Ah, yes. You're right. Sorry. Let's go inside. Bzzzt. I had to double check my pockets. That wasn't meant to be part of the interrogation, but it ended up getting me useful information. Maybe. What did it even mean? Giyosami. We don't have all day, you know. Oh, I must have been staring. I gave her an apologetic smile. Right. Let's go. The interior of the shrine was fairly plain. While it was in the same state of disrepair as the outside, it was much more well kept. Yukari hadn't suggested any specific aspect of the shrine we were trying to investigate, probably because this trip was supposed to be a red herring. I didn't care, though. We took notes on what we found, walked around the shrine's outskirts to appreciate the wilderness, and then that was it for the day. At least, that was it for her. I think I had tested that enough to be able to get the truth from her. It was time to end this. Before Violet could cross the gates of the shrine back to home, I pulled on her sleeve. Yosami. What is it? Violet A. Taoin. You're the person who wrote both the letters, correct? Ah. You got me. What tipped you off? It was suspicious from the beginning, you know. You transferred to my class the same exact day I received that first letter. Got involved in my life for no discernible reason at the same time a mysterious supernatural admirer did. I definitely couldn't have decoded the letter without you that first time, and even the second you were connected to the answer. It wasn't really subtle. Wait, does that mean you've known the whole time? And you kept that from me? How could you, Yosami? I groaned. I'm sure she'd keep playing up this fake incredulity, so I had to get aggressive. I only suspected it. Also, that's pretty bold from the person who drew me into an elaborate deception in the first place. You. Did our time together mean nothing to you? It meant a lot. I really enjoyed it. Huh. I took a deep breath. Before I could get to what I wanted to ask, I had to let this out. It was pretty stupid to say, especially to a person who was actively deceiving me, but I meant it. Why do you think I kept hanging out with you when I knew you were tricking me? Why do you think I never questioned why you would pretend to be a student at my school? It's because it benefited me too. If I were to receive a normal love confession from one of my classmates, I'd probably toss it out without a second thought. What can people like them really understand about me? It'd be like a blind person describing a TV. I mean, we're just fundamentally different. That's why there's no point in trying to connect with them. It felt like she wanted to say something, but even though I left room for her to speak, she didn't say a word. So I continued. A magical confession, however? It caught my interest. There was the obvious reason that it meant the sender was also superhuman, but the way she went about it fascinated me. She put it in a code, then laid steps to challenge me to find her. Our magical little secret relationship. Just the kind of thing that suited me. There was also the fact that she thought highly enough of my intelligence to figure it out. Wait, why am I talking about it like such a person could ever exist? I already said that I was always suspicious of you, right? I'll just repeat it again. That kind of person was too good to be true. I mean, that's obvious. In the back of my mind this was probably all you're doing, and now you've confirmed that's true. So it was a complete fabrication, wasn't it? Violet continued to stare in silence. I had to clear my throat. Say something. Oh, I did write the letters, but that's not. I let the silence weigh on her. Apparently she couldn't handle it, because she broke eye contact with me. So why did you play along with this plan? You haven't explained that yet. Damn it, she was being vague. The device wouldn't work in that case. I guess I needed to tell her more of my feelings to break through her walls. At first, it was just due to enjoying the game. That thrill applied to you just as well. Figuring out the truth, breaking through your puzzles one by one. I felt smart and powerful. If you wove this plan like a tapestry, I wanted to unravel it. Because I can keep up with you. I am a genius, after all. Is that so? This was definitely strange. I expected her to put up a fight, but she wasn't even doing that. Was her strategy something different? We stood in awkward silence for a few minutes. I even started counting the seconds in my head, but she just stood there, gaze unfocused. I was starting to have doubts too, maybe I had already made a mistake somewhere. But I would push on, because normal people would falter. And I was Sumireko Yosemite. I really didn't realize what it would be like at first. I have friends now, in Gensokyo, but none of them really understand what it's like in the modern world. And we can talk about it, but that side of me can never be seen by them. After I crossed the barrier, I thought that I could cast that other world aside and become a resident of Gensokyo in heart, if not in body, but I've realized now that I still am attached to this world. And that's because of you, Violet. I'm really happy that you came. You're someone that can walk alongside me in school. Someone who understands me when we talk about the crazy stories from our side of reality, or when I complain about how shitty modern society is, or even just when we're spending time together. And at the same time, you're someone completely different from anyone in this modern world. More than just a fellow enthusiast of the occult. You're a living part of it. I haven't been able to share these feelings with anyone else. Really? Yes. I know that Yukari Yakumo is far removed from being an ordinary high school girl. You're a yokai of incomprehensible malice and power, having lived for thousands of years. But these past few weeks, when you've been by my side, you've just been Violet a Touhouan. A kind of person I don't know if I could find anywhere else. That's why I'm going to need you to be honest. Okay. It was confusing. Why wasn't she fighting back? Of all the possible reactions that she could have had, emphatic agreement felt completely incongruous with her. Unless, bluntly speaking, I don't think you were ever serious about being a student at my school. So what would be the point of you doing all this? My hypothesis is that you're just messing around. You wanted to play as a high school student in the outside world. Since I was already a pseudo-inhabitant of Gensokyo, it'd be easiest to just tag along with me. The letter was just giving yourself a justification to be involved, not just to me, but to those in Gensokyo who would question why you're spending time in the outside world. Am I right? That had to be it, right? Something she started because she was just bored, and now she regretted being so flippant about it when I seriously cared. But she didn't confirm or deny it. She didn't do anything, in fact. It was like Violet was frozen in place. After an irritating pause, she finally uttered. Huh. Just answer me. That's a lot to take in, Sumireko. Why did you? I've already given you plenty of reasons, haven't I? It's only right for you to at least tell me something in return. I'm just not sure of why I did all this myself. Bzzzt. No, you are. I can tell. Well, answer me. Am I right or not? No. I'm not just messing around. Well, there went my hypothesis. It felt like I'd just crashed into a bus, but I pinched my wrist to refocus myself on the only action I could take. So. Then what's your reason? It was important to me. That I did this. I waited for her to expand, but she shut herself up again. Oh, come on. You need to explain more than that. Do I? Aren't we friends? Was she really playing that card? She must have noticed how annoyed that made me, because she outright flinched. I was still going to reprimand her about it. I consider you a friend. In fact, I just opened my heart to you about why you mattered to me. But as far as I know, you don't feel the same. Since you were lying to me for the past few weeks, I can't trust your behavior until you tell me the truth. Don't I deserve at least that much? I guess, but... She sighed. Yosemite, I don't believe that you know this, but as someone who regularly travels to Gensokyo from the outside world, you cause some phenomena rarely seen. I wanted to directly observe the effects, which I would need to do in person, and thus I played the part of one of your fellow students. Bzzzt. Don't give me that shit. You can't seriously convince me that's what you were doing. After all, if you were, you would have been there every time I crossed over into Gensokyo. Oh. And how do you know I wasn't there watching? It would be easy to hide in a gap and watch within an illusion of light. Because then there'd be no point in pretending to be a student. You could be using that same exact method to watch me in the outside world. It'd be much less risky. We even ran into Miss Mamizu together. So there was some need to specifically serve as a student. Am I right? Fine. You're right. Was that emotion in her eyes what I thought it was? There was no way. It was inconceivable that Yukari Yakumo would be afraid right now. But I still needed to get to the bottom of this. I'll ask again. What was your reason, then? It's because you're Disconnected. That's right, right? You don't talk to anyone, or have any friends. I'm worried about you. If you stay alone like this. I waited for the device's reaction. Though they were mere seconds, I could feel each beat of silence loom above as if to crush me. But no buzz appeared, which meant Yukari wasn't lying. That was the whole point of a lie detector, after all. It was the invention I asked the Kappa for. They provided advanced technological prowess, and I enhanced the lie detecting abilities with my psychic powers. While I needed to ask a question to activate it, it was quite reliable. And it had clearly proved its usefulness. A small part of me was relieved that I had finally wrested some truth from her. But too much of me was absolutely livid for what that statement actually meant. Are you seriously trying to lecture me about that? Yes, I pushed everyone away in the past. And I tried to convince myself that I would be okay not having anyone to connect with. But I'm not alone anymore, ever since I went to Gensokyo. I have Ryumu and Marisa and Kazan and Mocha, and the point is, I regularly talk to others now. I know what it's like to not be alone, and try to treasure those friendships. Why the hell do you think you can lecture me about this? You don't know anything about me. You're just full of yourself. That's not what I... Then explain yourself. Can you? I glared at her unmoving expression. Not a word. I thought not. Just lecturing me would be annoying, but the fact that you went as far as to pull me into some warped scheme to fix me pisses me off. I took a deep breath again. I was still in disbelief, but if it was the truth, then it was the truth. It is still a surprisingly selfless reason. Was there really nothing in it for you? No. No. Bzzzt. I grit my teeth and tried to swallow down the frustration bubbling up in my throat. Wrong. Try again. What do you personally gain from doing all this? I really don't know what you're talking about, Sumireko. After a few more moments just listening to my heart pound, I realized she was telling the truth. A searing anger and icy confusion shot through my body as I tried to deduce what that meant. I know she had been lying, so what interpretation allowed what she just said to be the truth? Oh, of course. She wasn't fully aware that she had ulterior motives herself. If she wasn't conscious of her true reasons, then the lie detector I've been using would naturally be inconsistent. It did help my burning anger fade, but that only made it cool into steely determination. Sumireko Yosamai, wouldn't just be toyed around with. I was smart enough to find a truth that even Yukari herself wasn't aware of. So, what would I do if I wanted to figure this out? First things first, I needed to change subjects. Let's just move on to the next part of your plan for now. You invented some fake classmate of mine. The classmate is real. Another statement that in terms of her mood, seemed to be the truth. But it made no logical sense. She had already admitted to writing the letters. So I had to ask. You won't get anywhere by hiding the truth, Violet. If she's real, then tell me, what's her name? If she actually needs help, why wouldn't you just directly lead me to her? Yukari's eyes widened. Her mouth opened and closed like she was a fish, which made it obvious to me that she was scrambling to make up an answer. Sure enough, the first thing out of her mouth was, she doesn't quite realize her situation herself. It also modified her memory, so. Bzzzt. Stop that. What's her name? Sorry, can I have a few moments to get my thoughts together? I could tell she really meant that. Whatever was going through her head, that unease wasn't an act. But I wasn't soft. I would keep pushing Yukari until she was able to say it. It's not like something like this could break Yukari anyways. For what? What do you need to figure out? I mean, if you just give me a few seconds, I'll tell you in a bit. Bzzzt. If anything, my attitude was entirely justified. The fact that she was still lying despite everything that happened was really irritating. No, you're not. I don't think you ever intended to. Even now, you're trying to make something up. I should have known you'd be like this. Just. Wait, what's that supposed to mean? That's just who Yukari Yakumo is. Someone who lies and manipulates others to get them to do what she wants. You would never have genuine feelings for Yusumi, right? You would never seriously tell her how you felt. I wasn't getting anywhere with my current approach. So, even if it was harsh, I had to attack her. It'd be okay, right? I had to continue. I had to act like this. I'd lie right back to destabilize her if it meant she finally opened up. Even this whole scared business is just an act, isn't it? This is all part of your big plan. Please, Sumireko, there is no big plan. Bzzzt. Ha. Yukari flinched and stepped back. A blatant lie, right? Since when have you been using a lie detector on me? Ever since this morning. It was sorely necessary, if our current conversation didn't make that obvious. Wait, you couldn't have gotten a device like that last minute. How far back have you been planning to? It was just insurance. If possible, I wanted to just talk to you the normal way, but if you were obstinate then I'd be able to force answers out of you with it. But why? I told you before, I need to dissect your plan. Of course I'd be willing to use a lie detector. I'd blackmail the capo to get a weapon I could use to win. I'd use underhanded tactics on my friends. Plus there's no way you're fragile enough to be hurt by me anyways. I need to understand why you're doing all this. For the sake of my heart as a girl, and the sake of my pride as a genius. That's who Yusumi Sumireko is. Yukari averted her gaze again and took some wobbly steps backwards. Yusumi wouldn't do that. Yusumi isn't that cruel. Yusumi wouldn't be that underhanded. How can you say that? I plotted to blow up the barrier once, didn't I? Is it that surprising I'd act like this? The answer should be no, but as I looked at Violet's expression, I had some doubts. Even though it really wasn't that much of a stretch, Yukari was having trouble understanding, for some reason. Yusumi is a hero, right? Yusumi would help others. Yusumi would open up their eyes and stick by their side. It's like she didn't hear me. No. Actually, judging by her low tone of voice and manic repetitions, something was seriously wrong with her. After some deliberation, I realized, this was it. If I could get to the bottom of the subject with Yukari, then I'd know why she went through this whole plan. And what she was so afraid of. Hey, Violet, can I ask you something else? Okay. What is it? What do you think of me? If that's difficult to answer, then let's start with just saying what you like about me. As a friend. If you say so. There's a few things. I like how proud of yourself you are. You believe that you can do anything no matter how unrealistic. But it's not just bluster, when you run into challenges, you work hard to overcome them. It's really admirable. I see. Are there other things? I love that dazzled look on your face when you find a new, interesting place. That cute meticulousness you have when completing tasks to perfection. Also, you're so accepting. Ah, nothing. Of all the words one could use to describe me, accepting wasn't one of them. She wasn't lying about how she felt. And she was definitely correct about some of my traits, but on others, she was completely off the mark. It was as if when she saw me, she was also thinking of someone else. Violet. What is it? Do I remind you of someone? I don't know what you're talking about. Bzzzt. It was a surprisingly benign reason. It was so innocent that I almost wanted to laugh, except that it'd probably end up poorly. So I restrained myself. I remind you of someone. An old friend, someone you also went to school with. And you've been treating me like that person. Right? No, of course not. Bzzzt. Sorry about this, my friend. I had no doubts now. Even though I could track her lies, that wouldn't be enough to force her to admit it. I just needed to find some information that would make Yukari break. Make a guess. Figure this out, Sumireko. Ren'Py. Who's Ren'Py? That is her name, right? There's a few other ways to combine those letters and I don't know English that well, which makes it trickier, but... How did you? You wrote the letters in her name weirdly. So, who is she? Sorry. Can you tell me who she is? She ran. Yukari Yakumo actually ran. Today was just another standard day in the modern world. As I pretended to pay attention to the teacher's lecture, going over subjects I already knew beforehand, I kept flipping the envelope in my hand over and over. Sumireko Yosamai. I was a high school student at Higashifukumai in the Kanto region and resident of the magical land of Gensokyo. Merely 2 weeks ago, I was alone in that status. I was alone in general when it came to the outside world. But someone else had joined me. Yukari Yakumo had stooped down to act as Violet A. Touhou, in memory of someone special to her named Ren'Py. While my current romantic prospects were as dim as they were before this incident began, I was still determined to keep this new friend. I spent the rest of the weekend gathering up my thoughts on how I wanted to handle this. Though I wasn't a perfect planner, I think I came up with some reasonable things to say. Apologies, but also please, for Violet to finally open up. This time, we were going to meet on the rooftop. Normally the teachers would be pretty strict about the fact that students couldn't be there without permission. It was monitored and kept under lock and key. But I merely had to suggest the idea to Violet for her to handle our access point. She was much more composed, but it seemed our fight at the shrine had still affected her. It looked like it fell to me to make the first move. You read through my letter, right? Of course, USA Sumireko. Otherwise I wouldn't have stolen the security keys to get up here. Why would you ask me such an obvious question? Still calibrating that lie detector of yours? I held up my hands in surrender. Sorry. I just wanted to say something to break the silence. And I left that at home. I don't think I'll need it for today. Fine. But that letter was still mean. Was it really necessary to use a Rayondale block cipher? No, that was purely done out of spite. Not like it really matters, because you managed to crack the code anyways. How did you manage to do that? I just had ran brute force it, obviously. It took some time to get it to her, but before that, you said you had something to say to me, didn't you? What is it? Right. I'm sorry. This was so much easier to say than that speech at the shrine. I went too far. I pushed you when you were clearly uncomfortable. I mean, I was surprised that you were even hurt in the first place, because I figured you'd be stronger than that. Sorry. I'm making excuses again. Why are you apologizing? You were right when you said that everything was my fault from manipulating you. And that I kept lying to you even after you exposed me. Because I want to apologize, even if you don't deserve it. To be honest, part of it is just selfishness on my part. This way I won't feel bad about it in the future. I smiled back before continuing. But part of it also is that I'd like to keep you as a friend. I feel like I've gotten to see who you really are now. If you'll still pretend to be a student, then I'll apologize. Because that's what friends do. I also would still like to know the truth. Are you okay telling me? I'll take that as a yes. So, who was Ren'Py? Violet, please don't just stay silent. I know. It's just. Do you really have such a hard time saying it? I don't like being vulnerable. Why? What'll happen if you open up? You don't know what others can learn about you. You don't know how they can use it against you. I shuddered. It was a surprisingly cold statement. I know you might not believe me, since I've told you about how I wanted to prove myself by breaking apart your motivations, but I won't hurt you with what you tell me. I'll try and help. You really have struggled with the memory of Ren'Py, right? If you don't tell me, do you have anyone else that would be able to understand? Of course she didn't. I just needed to make her accept it. I thought of any other way I could coax her into being comfortable, but unfortunately, the only thing I had was the cold truth. I can't really leave you alone. After all, this is something only I can do. So I have to give it everything I have. Are you sure you don't have any ulterior motives? I can't lie, I still want to figure you out. But I also do want to help. I feel like she would have done the same thing. You two really are similar, you know? With that single-minded drive to uncover knowledge. Me and Ren'Py, right? Yes. You're both people that have enough confidence in your intellect to solve the unknown. When you run into a mystery you can't help but want to get to the bottom of it. Can you tell me about you two? We were part of the SEA club in university. We were its only 2 members, but that's because we preferred it that way. Our primary purpose was traveling in search of other worlds, of unexplored phenomena. Sounds familiar? Our little shrine excursion must have been very nostalgic for her. No, it was probably the whole reason she planned that in the first place. And I'm pretty similar to her? Oh, perhaps. Does that mean you're still hiding something from me? Yes, but this time, it's because it's a fact that would be a bad idea for me to share. What do you mean by that? I treated you as someone you're not. I kept thinking of you as Ren'Py, but you are Sumireko. That's why I shouldn't tell you this fact to fully place a boundary between you two in my mind. Okay. I won't ask. But then tell me some more about her, like, what happened between you two? It's not like something happened. Between us, at least. We graduated, and even made plans to move in together. Wait, you guys had already gone that far? You've been so, emotionally fragile, I wouldn't have expected you to officially be a couple. You're right. We weren't. We were already close friends, but... No, I guess you already know. I loved her. She said that it'd be more convenient to live together to keep rent down, but I was too afraid of the possibility that that's all it was. That she didn't want more from our relationship like I did. A thought crossed my mind: this was a very modern style of living. That was definitely weird, and the logical part of my mind demanded answers. This was absolutely not the time for it, but even so. Seems like something's caught your attention, Sumireko. Huh, if you're asking about it, then I guess it's alright. How long ago was this, exactly? Good observation. The thing is, I actually don't know how long ago it was. I have lived for thousands of years after all. That statement was still inconsistent. I must have seemed even more confused, because Violet let out a soft laugh. The crux of the problem was how we ended up separated, and my memories of that time are fuzzy. Something happened. It hurt. I remember feeling like I would be torn in two. My body, my mind, my heart. She was there too. Or maybe she was there just before then, before the night fell? No, She had to take a deep breath. Even now, when I try to remember it, that would be enough from me. Alright. I get the picture. Let's talk about something else. What the hell is up with the letter? Yukari had written it in a plan to keep me involved with her. I knew that for a fact, but apparently, it was also real to some degree. Yet she also couldn't name any details. It was the biggest actual mystery left, and what was keeping me on edge about the whole thing. Sumireko. Yes, I wrote the letters. But the person I was pretending to be was real. Sort of. You know, you actually have to explain, Violet. Right. One of your classmates has accidentally ended up in Gensokyo. Just like we have in the past, though unlike us, she doesn't have any innate powers. She just came across an occult item and has been marked ever since. So, why had Yukari written the letters then? I couldn't be too hasty. After all, first I needed to know. Who is it? Violet leaned close to my ear, enough to where I could feel how clammy she was, and whispered the girl's name. Wait, hashtag. That bitch. Are you serious? Her, of all people, is someone who got to travel to my Gensokyo? It's my Gensokyo actually, but yes. It happened years before either of you enrolled in high school, but she's been followed by ghostly music ever since. She complained about it on one of her social media outlets despite not having any grasp of the truth. So I decided to co-opt her past for the sake of creating a good story in the letter. But she's a perfect mindless drone of a schoolgirl. Clinging to the most popular girl in our grade and throwing away other people's money while shopping or whatever. Her group makes sure anyone they don't like suffers when they go to school. They think I'm beneath notice to them, which mind you is fine by me, but hearing their insults isn't exactly fun. She even made fun of you despite you two barely having met, remember? What are you so defensive about? I don't expect you to fall in love with her, or even be her friend. Just hear out this request, okay? That means you are going to ask me to interact with her, though. Yes. I. I think she's just in denial. Denial? What basis do you have to even say that? Isn't it obvious? I remember how I felt at that age. How it felt, every night, to wake up in a land I didn't understand. The inhuman creatures, the biting weather, the air of malice that came from constantly being chased and targeted. To top it all off, everyone thought I was crazy. Even my parents, though they still cared for me and outwardly affirmed my claims. I found out they were secretly searching how to deal with my mental issues. At times I felt like I should just give in, and that it'd be much nicer to accept that I was crazy, because then I wouldn't have to be scared of going to sleep and possibly never waking up. Despite all that, I couldn't lie to myself. I knew that I was experiencing reality, I knew that these strange occurrences weren't just delusions. No one believed me. Well, maybe there was one exception. Except Ren'Py. Even Ren'Py didn't believe me at first. But unlike everyone else, she took me seriously. She was absolutely dazzling. The way she swept me up in her arms, comforted me, told me she was going to solve anything. She helped me draft a scientific study to test what was happening to me, and once we found empirical proof that my ability to cross boundaries into other worlds was reality, she promised she'd stay by my side. A mere high schooler, in a country thousands of kilometers away, had the arrogance to promise to be by my side. I probably was already in love at that point. I lived in at the time, but when going to university I moved all the way to Japan and learned Japanese just so I could be with Ren'Py. Then we kept exploring, pushing boundaries together, and at this point, Violet quieted down. I didn't really know how to comfort her. I don't know if I ever could have. I see. It's okay. We stayed like that for a few moments. I almost swore I could hear her heart pounding, but then she jolted. Right. We were talking about why I think your classmate could be in denial. I think our situations are similar enough. We were both severed from normal humans as a child, and I'd imagine she's also in a situation where nobody believed her. Ren'Py found me during high school, but ####### got found by our bitch, a popular girl instead. Someone who similarly comforted her, but also pushed her to disregard others and drown in material indulgence. There's the very real chance that back when I was Maribel, if I had been in #########'s place, I would have ended up with her personality too. Well, I'm not sure about that one. I don't think I could have ever been that much of a brat as Maribel. I only became a bitch once I became Yukari. Yeah, I agree. With every part of that. You, why are you so mean? Sorry. I got carried away. My point is that if I asked you to do this on that first day, you would have refused. No doubt about it. Because not only is she a normie, she's also the exact type of person who pisses you off. She was right, but I understand what you're saying, but the fact remains that she's just unpleasant to be around. No. Would anything I do change how irritating she is? I'm not a saint or anything. Well, she doesn't have to stay that way. I don't think she's fundamentally awful. Would it surprise you to learn that I don't think everyone is? I've seen so many beings come and go. People, human or yokai, can change in the right scenario, and all you have to do is manipulate the circumstances to make it happen. My knee-jerk reaction was to claim that that was wishful thinking. Too many atrocities existed in the world from people being set in their ways. But I couldn't say that to Violet of all people, and moments later realized it was because she clearly had changed. Multiple times. So who was I to tell her otherwise? Again, I'm not asking you to burden yourself for her sake. All you need to do is stick by her for a day. Help show her how those specters that tormented her were real, and that someone will believe her story. That alone would probably be enough to break her whole personality, and hopefully make her a more agreeable person. But if you could save her like how Ren'Py saved me, it would make me really happy. Could you do that? I'll try. I'll take it seriously. Thank you. She stood up and stretched. We had skipped multiple classes, but neither of us really cared. This was a really nice conversation. A really important conversation. A really vulnerable conversation. I didn't have those often, and I wasn't really sure how to feel about them. Since she gave me a task, I could instead think about what I could do to accomplish her request. If you had told me from 2 weeks ago I'd be willingly attempting to talk to ########, I'd laugh in your face. But I'd give it my all to get to the bottom of things. And most of all, I wanted to honor the requests of Violet, Yukari, Maribel. My friend. Whew, I'm exhausted. I don't think I've ever spoken that long. Bzzzt. If you're going to make sound effects with your mouth, maybe I should lie more. Maybe I'll even commission mass-produced Sumireko plus highs that also serve as lie detectors. Ugh, no thanks. The thought of them rotting in landfills is depressing. Really? I'd prefer to think of them as miniature doppelgangers. Little bits of you that hold your essence. You could live forever, you know? If I wanted that, I'd find some way to do it myself. Ahaha, if you say so. She started to walk away, but... Oh, Violet. Yeah, Sumireko. I just had a small question. How were you both in Gensokyo and in the modern world at the same time? Did you not realize? I'm actually the Yukari Yakumo from the dream world. After the real me witnessed you seeing Reimu and Marisa get together again, it dredged up enough painful memories for me to act. But Doremi is upset at me for sneaking out. I don't know if you'd know what it's like to have a strict mom, but she doesn't take me breaking the rules well. Mrs. Sweet can't do much about how my powers trump hers, unfortunately. What are you going to do if you get grounded, Violet? Then who will I make fun of? You'd be surprised at who you can get away with making fun of, Sumireko. Don't worry, though. Even if she does keep me trapped, I'll be sure to have my real self send my regards. With that answer, she walked back to our secret rooftop portal. But before she jumped through, she pivoted back to me. Oh yeah, you should talk to Sani. Sani. That's the Moriya Shrine Maiden, right? But why? Oh, who knows? You do, clearly. Bzzzt. I should bzzzt you right back. Ahaha. See you later, Sumireko. See you later, Violet. Violet Ataoan walked back into the school building, and the saga of my love letters came to an end. Thank you for playing. Sumireko's Love Letters, 1.0. Quit.